Xbox Game Pass this year has certainly been excellent when it comes to bringing us some awesome games. Of course, we are suffering at the moment from some pretty horrid price increases, but today I did want to highlight some of the fantastic games you can play right now across every single tier of Xbox Game Pass. We have everything from massive AAA first-party games to some lesser-known indie titles, but all of these are absolutely incredible and are must-try experiences. With that though, my name is Fletcher, and this is Xbox Nation, and let's dive right into the games you can play on Game Pass right now in October 2025. First up, we have Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and honestly, this game is an utter masterpiece. I was actually lucky enough to get a review code just prior to its launch, and I loved every second that I spent exploring the continent. If you're unfamiliar, each year the paintress approaches a mysterious monolith and inscribes a descending number, and those of her age are fated to vanish in the ritual known as the Mirage. You will then join a volunteer force called the Expeditioners, and you're determined to stop her and save humanity. The storytelling, the visuals, the music, the voice acting, everything just hits the perfect 10 out of 10 for me. It really is rare for a game to make me so emotionally attached to its characters, and without exaggeration, Expedition 33 will easily win Game of the Year for 2025. Doom the Dark Ages finally gave us a chance to rip and tear again this year. This one actually launched back into Xbox Game Pass this May, and has already been played by over 4 million fans already. While it's not everyone's favourite in the modern Doom trilogy, I had an absolute blast with this one and actually sits as my favourite so far. It trades some of Eternal's insane parkour speed for a more grounded and heavy combat experience, and that was obviously to some mixed opinions, but that shield ability, the mech sections and those chaotic fly moments were absolutely incredible. Plus, not having to constantly worry about ammo for the first time was such a relief, especially compared to previous entries. The expanded story was a nice touch as well, giving more weight to all of the carnage. I do have to say, if you haven't tried this one yet, definitely grab it and play it on Game Pass as soon as possible, especially before we're due some DLC very soon. One of the most unique Xbox platformers that I've played in recent years is called South of Midnight, and although there was some stupid backlash from many grifters out there, anybody who's actually played this game has only positive things to say about it. You will play as Hazel, a weaver searching for a mother while repairing fractured stories and emotions across a haunting southern-inspired world. The game's stop-motion art style is pretty lovely, as every frame feels handcrafted, and the music is easily up there with Clair Obscur. The way it just swells during emotional or even boss moments gives me utter chills, and Compulsion Games really nailed it. I love seeing that Xbox do bring out these more unique titles, and even though I said the combat wasn't great in my own review, the world, story and atmosphere is a 10 out of 10. It's easily one of my favourite Xbox titles this year, and feel free to check out my review here on the channel. Assassin's Creed Mirage landed onto Xbox Game Pass not too long ago, and it really was a return to what made the series just so iconic. In this one though, you'll be playing as Basim, navigating a vibrant, detailed streets of Baghdad as he rises within the Assassin Brotherhood. Mirage really does feel like a love letter though, especially if you like the early days of this franchise. That is due to it now including stuff like tight stealth, smooth parkour, and also missions that reward patience and also planning. It's more compact, focused, and dripping with atmosphere. Sure, there are a few modern touches like flashy abilities and modern UI flourishes, which I wasn't too keen on, but it still captures the old school Assassin's Creed soul that everyone loved. For anyone who missed the classic formula but still wants something a little bit more fresh, then Mirage absolutely hits that perfect middle ground. Hogwarts Legacy had to make it onto this list today, and I just had to include this fantastic RPG. This one is set in the Wizarding World long before The Boy Who Lived, and really did offer such a great and expansive open world RPG, which many of us never expected it to be this good. This one though was very different from any of the old Potter games, as this one actually lets you take on the life of a new student at Hogwarts yourself. You'll of course have to attend your different classes, learn spells, tame magical beasts, and explore hidden corners of the castle and beyond. The real magic, well for me anyway, was just how accurately Hogwarts and each location has been designed, as it's like walking into the movies. There is combat in this one, and I'm still kind of digging how the devs managed to implement it, as it's so extremely satisfying and one of my favourite games over the past couple of years. Metaphor ReFantazio was one of 2024's best games, and it really only missed out on a Game of the Year shout, and surprisingly enough is now available on Xbox Game Pass as a must-play title. The storytelling here is incredibly sharp, the pacing is very tight, and the game just oozes so much style, from stuff like character design to the environments, and it screams so much quality. But it's not just about the looks here. Metaphor also introduces a fantastic job system this time around that's equal parts addictive and incredibly rewarding, letting you customize your party in ways that feel impactful and also fun. I'd say the game is not only for fans of Persona or SMT, but for anyone who loves a deep character-driven RPG. It's already being called one of the best RPGs that Atlus has put out in many years, and for very good reason. I was still quite surprised to see this one come to Xbox Game Pass so early this year, but even if it's only a year old as of today, it's still very much worth experiencing. What's better than a beach vacation? How about a blood-soaked one? Dead Island 2 doesn't care about realism, as it's here for some very messy, outrageous fun. Every corner of Los Angeles in this game is a playground of carnage, where you can basically drop kick a zombie into a pool, or carve up his friend with an electrified hammer. The gore system is just so absurdly detailed. I really haven't seen a game include something so gross, hilarious, and bloody addictive. The game also doesn't take itself seriously for a second, as it's constantly mocking influence and culture and LA's shiny plastic lifestyle. The best part of the overall package though is that the combat feels so smooth, and the court mode is so insanely fun, especially if you have some friends to dive into it with. This one is just dumb fun in the best way, and although the story certainly isn't the strongest in the franchise, it's an absolute blast in every single area. There are games that will entertain you, and then there are ones that stay with you, just like we've seen with Clair Obscur. Well, A Plague Tale Requiem also sits in the latter. It opens with sunlight and innocence before dragging you through so much filth, fear, and also heartbreak. You of course will play as Amicia, protecting her younger brother Hugo across a plague-ravaged France, where every hope feels impossible. The visuals are just so bloody stunning, and every frame is dripping with so much mood and melancholy. Stealth isn't just a mechanic here either. You really have to nail it to ultimately ensure your survival, and it really comes through well with a ton of desperation to it. What made Requiem so special though is in its humanity, and it just nails the atmosphere and tone of desperation, and ultimately does show what you would do in some insane life-changing situations. It really was a masterpiece by Sobo Studios, and I'm really looking forward to A Plague Tale Resonance in 2026. Monster Train 2 seemingly dropped out of nowhere onto Xbox Game Pass earlier this year, and I really wasn't ready for how good it would ultimately be. This sequel doesn't reinvent the wheel like everyone was expecting. Instead, it turbocharges it and just perfects everything we loved about the original entry. Everything from the first game's multi-floor combat returns here, but now there's more strategy, more chaos, and way more replayability. You'll be able to experiment with different factions, stack some ridiculous card combos, and constantly tweak your deck mid-run. Pacing is what really hooked me into this one though, as battles fly by, yet every turn demands your thoughts. It's one of those sort of just one more run sort of games that suddenly becomes 5 hours later. If you love games like Slay the Spire or the original Monster Train, this will be your next big addiction. Stepping back into Oblivion after all of those years really did feel pretty surreal, and I think many actually forgot this was a shadow drop earlier this year, which is still kind of mind-blowing if you think about it. This one though is like returning home to find it rebuilt from the ground up, and it's absolutely incredible. The remaster doesn't just polish the visuals either, it really rejuvenates the whole experience while still keeping the odd bugs and quirks that gave us such a good time back in 2006. Cyrodiil obviously looks stunning with modern lighting and texture work that somehow still preserves that warm, nostalgic glow. What really blew my mind though is just how Virtua Studios managed to modernise the gameplay without losing that old school charm. I was constantly smiling again like it was 2006, as the music, the voices, that classic charm, it's all still here. Whether you're a long-time fan or just brand new to this series, Oblivion Remastered is a must-play, especially for RPG fans. HiFi Rush was such a great rhythm action game that combined vibrant visuals, high energy combat, and a killer soundtrack. I won't lie, I personally hate how Xbox have decided to shutter the studio, even though the game was widely praised because the devs are so friggin' talented. If you don't know about this one though, you basically play as Chai, a wannabe rock star who gains the ability to synchronize his movements with the beat of the music after a corporate experiment goes awry. The combat system then rewards your timing and rhythm, with attacks, dodges, and special moves all syncing to the beats. As you progress, you will be unlocking some brand new abilities and teaming up with colourful allies who also bring their own unique skills to the different battles. The game's infectious energy and charm make it such a standout title, and it's one that people fell in love with upon its launch. Some games are pretty hard, but then you have Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. This one also dropped out of nowhere during the Xbox Developer Direct earlier this year, but this remaster doesn't pull any punches. You will once again take control of Ryu as he cuts through demons and rival ninjas in what's easily some of the most punishing and rewarding gameplay that we've ever seen. Every input really matters, as one bad dodge, you'll be done, but when you get into that perfect flow, slicing, countering and flipping, you feel like an absolute god. The updated visuals make it look so much cleaner, and the quality of life tweaks help smooth out all of those rough edges. But the challenge, well, is still pretty brutal. It's pure old school skill and precision, so there's no hand holding and no mercy. If you're craving intensity, this is the real deal, and I can't wait for Ninja Gaiden 4, which is now only a few days away. Few games out there scratch that command your own army fantasy quite like Shadow of War, and as a Lord of the Rings fan myself, it really stands out as one of the best games within this franchise. It really did expand on the legendary Nemesis system that we did see in the first entry. If you remember, it makes every orc you face remember you, hate you, and even mock you, and that gives the world a weird and more personal energy to it. No two players will ever have the same story either though, as you might forge alliances with some orcs, and another one of your friends may actually watch a rival coming back with a scar and a grudge. If you add in that slick combat, fortress sieges, and sweeping Middle-earth setting, it becomes one of the best Lord of the Rings games that's ever been made. As I mentioned, I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan, and whilst Gollum was, let's say, pretty forgettable, Shadow of War honestly got it so right. I do wish the Nemesis system does get a return, but with Warner Brothers owning the rights to it, I have a feeling it will be lost to time. Sometimes the best games on Xbox are the simplest, and Lonely Mountain Snow Riders really hooked me instantly. This game is just you, a snowboard of skis, and a mountain daring you to crash at every single corner. The concept though is pretty easy. You basically go down the slope as fast as possible without breaking every single bone in your body. I told myself one more run about 50 times before finally getting that 1000 gamer score, and it was totally worth it. The controls are buttery smooth here, the art style is crisp and cozy, especially for an indie, and every corner feels like a high-stake puzzle. The single-player challenges are pretty fun, but the multiplayer races against 7 other people really crank up that tension. I know many of you who tune into the channel know that I gush about this game every so often, but it's easy to understand why when you dive into it for the very first time. It's almost a tradition at this point. A Diablo game launches, fans riot, and then a massive patch swoops in to save the day, and although the game is in a pretty good spot right now, it still does have some negatives surrounding its controversy. What started as a grind-heavy, uneven experience has now been reborn into a smoother and more rewarding action RPG. Loot drops do feel meaningful, progression also makes sense, and the Helltide events, well, they're absolute chaos in the very best way. I do still hate personally how they added so much monetization to this game, but deep down there is still a solid game underneath all of those aspects. With the game now on Xbox Game Pass, there's no excuse not to dive into it and certainly try it out, as you may even fall in love with this series if you've never tried it before. Diablo IV has certainly turned around from a mixed bag into one of the most satisfying looters on Xbox right now. When it comes to post-apocalyptic worlds, Stalker 2 is one of the best on the market, and some of the updates that we've seen over the past year have been utterly fantastic. This one though is actually set in the infamous exclusion zone, and this is a radioactive nightmare that's crawling with mutants, factions, and also bizarre anomalies that warp reality itself. It's not easy, so definitely be prepared to die time and time again. Even a basic gunfight can feel like a boss battle, and that's part of what makes this game just so brilliant. The A-Life 2.0 system, which was introduced into this entry, made the world feel more alive than ever before, as enemies, wildlife, and weather will all react dynamically to you. Your decisions matter as well, and it leads to multiple different endings shaped on who you help or who you betray. It's a really harsh game, and some will definitely struggle, but it's one that really nails that tension, and if you stick with it, you will fall in love with it. There's Underrated, and then there's Ryse Son of Rome, and this Xbox One gem still looks stunning years later. Honestly, it could pass for a current release, and I'm begging for a new game in this series. For any of you who haven't played this one, you basically take control of Marius Titus, a Roman soldier out for vengeance after a tragic event. Combat here mixes precision with spectacle, chaining different brutal executions that feel straight out of a movie, and although it's not the most in-depth in terms of its gameplay, it still feels quite weighty, and you will feel like a god at time to time. The set pieces are the real stars of the show though, with different sieges, colosseums, full-scale battles, and so much more, and it's all in the name to deliver us some jaw-dropping moments. Sure, the campaign is a pretty short experience, and yes, it is still locked to 30 FPS on our Xbox consoles to this day, but the presentation and the atmosphere more than make up for it. I'm always up for trying out games that I have little to no interest in, but for some reason, Abiotic Factor really stuck with me massively, and is one of the best indies that I've actually played this entire year. It basically hands you a wrench and throws you into utter disaster. One second you'll be a quiet lab tech, the next, aliens are then eating your co-workers, whilst you raid vending machines for your lunch. It's chaotic, hilarious, and genuinely tense all at once. What I really love most about it though is just how much freedom it gives you, as you'll be crafting different tools, barricades, and ridiculous contraptions to stay alive as long as possible. You can play this one solo, but co-op is where it really does shine, and I've already had a ton of laughs while diving in with my mates. Don't sleep on this one though, even if you do think it looks a little bit dated, because I tell you what, underneath that rough exterior is a massive hidden gem. Every now and then, a game comes along that makes you stop and think, and The Alters does exactly that. It's a sci-fi survival story where you clone versions of your very own self, each representing the life that you could have lived. But these clones aren't obedient, they will argue, they will question you, and they also hold their own grudges. Suddenly, survival becomes a moral and emotional juggling act, and you're not just managing resources, but you're managing identities, regrets, and alternate realities. It's hauntingly personal and surprisingly emotional, forcing you to confront what you really means. I love when games go deeper than the mechanics, and The Alters completely delivers that on every single front. It's weird, thoughtful, and quietly brilliant, and definitely one of the standout narrative experiences of 2025. Obsidian is absolutely on fire this generation, and even though Avowed was certainly a very mixed bag upon its release, I had a ton of fun with this one. From Pentiment to Grounded, Obsidian have nailed their variety, but this one, well, it was their big fantasy swing. It is set in the fantasy world of Eora, and as a first-person RPG that feels rich, reactive, and utterly alive. The combat is punchy, and for me is the real biggest highlight of the entire game. The magic also feels pretty powerful, and your dialogue choices genuinely shape the story and the world around you. Some actually compared this one to Skyrim, but it's a very different beast as I mentioned. That's due to it being leaner, sharper, and more focused on its storytelling and also player agency. It is a true Xbox Game Pass gem, and whether on PC or even console, is a huge win for Obsidian's growing legacy on Xbox to this day. What's your favourite game on Game Pass at the moment? You'll have to let me know down below. Remember to like this video if you did enjoy it, and also subscribe for more Xbox content every single day. Whilst you're here though, and if you want to check out some more awesome Xbox content here on the channel, why don't you check the video out on screen right now? I recently covered a huge sale going on the Xbox store right now, and there's a few games you certainly want to pick up before they expire.